I like to explain it is with the concept of wills. You know, if there was multiple wills, what would happen if there's multiple wills? Say God A, just to give you the understanding, because even God in the Quran talks about many different gods, right? So if there was a God A and he wanted to make Cornwall Islamic Centre turn the decoration turn from white to blue, but God B wants to make it yellow, what will happen if they want to do it on the same day in the future? What will happen between God A and God B? One saying blue, one saying yellow.
There will be a war between each other.
Good. That's what Allah talks about in the Quran. A conflict of wills, a war. There'll be like loggerheads, isn't it? One's yellow, one's blue. What's going to happen? How can there be two gods? If we're saying God is the all-powerful, then there cannot be another the all-powerful. Even in the English, the THE, you know, the definite article, the in the linguistic sense indicates one. Yeah. So this is how you can bring it. With multiple creators, there'll be multiple wills, like two prime ministers, for example, and you get a loggerhead, a clash. That's what the verse is here. In here, they talk about what Brother Yahya was saying, that there will be chaos and, you know, this clash or whatever. So, you know, for example, in the middle one, had they been within the heavens and the earth, gods besides Allah, they both would have been ruined. Yeah, they both would have been ruined, right? So exalted is Allah, Lord of the throne, above what they describe. So it's impossible that there can be more than one God. Yeah, and you know, even if you look how Allah words it, and even in English, look at this, it's quite interesting. If you look here, it says there, look, had there been within the heavens and the earth gods besides Allah. Look how Allah doesn't even give them the honor. He says they're within the heavens and the earth. You know, God isn't within the heavens and the earth, isn't it? If you look at the Arabic, it's going to be the real pristine meaning will be in the Arabic, yeah? But had there been gods within the heavens and the earth, Allah's even pushed these other fake gods into the earth, right? And made them part of the physical realm, right? So oneness is very easy to explain with the concept of multiple wills. That's the best way to bring it. You know, if there was more than one will, there'll be chaos. So imagine now that you believe in 30 gods or 3 million gods. All these conflict of wills. It's even more messy, isn't it? Two gods is messy, but when you have more multiple wills, it gets even more messy. So the concept of there being more than one God, impossible.
That's what they believe. So the more God you get, the more power. That's what
they believe, but it goes against our. Remember, it's our concept of God is different in that regard. Yeah, their God is a finite creation. It's a weak thing.
So that's what Ikhlas will explain.
It explains it brilliantly. I'm glad you said that, Subha. If any of you bring Surah Ikhlas and can explain it in English,
I was watching a guy. He said, okay, so if you know that there's no Trinity in the Bible, which is not Trinity word in the Bible, so show me Tawheed. I said Tawheed, it means oneness.
Yeah.
Go to Surah Ikhlas. It will explain. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Says Allah only.
Yeah.
Allahu samad. He begins not always
forgotten. Yeah. Every verse of the Quran is Tawheed. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the Surah Ikhlas is perfect.
Yeah.
No. This is a good point. What Brother Subha is saying, brothers and sisters. Surah Ikhlas. Honestly, the more you bring it, the more powerful your dawah. Just bring it in any context. Even if you say to a non-Muslim, there's nothing like unto him. There's nothing like God. So then getting the concept is Tawheed to the pure
means oneness.
Of course, in the purest sense. That's exactly it. So now we move on to Quran, right? So Quran, or Revelation, is basically has a chain now. So look, what you want to explain with Revelation is, why do we need Revelation? So you want to explain to the non-Muslims what's the need of the Quran, what is the proof of the Quran, how do we know the Quran is from God, and then this is where you introduce worship, because what is the overall message of the Quran? What's the overall message of the Quran? Everything it's calling to is
Tawheed
and worship. Exactly, Hassan. Yeah, Tawheed and worship. Yeah, same thing. Tawheed is worship, right? So the worship of one God. So that is the core purpose of our life, and that's what the Quran teaches. Yes, the Quran's got stories of the prophets. It talks about Musa, Pharaoh, Noah alayhi salam. It talks about heaven and hell. It talks about all these things. But the core, when you walk away with anything from the Quran, is the Tawheed or the worship. So we're going to talk a bit about worship, because this is good for the dawah as well to bring it. Then you get the agreement. You know, after this chain, you get an agreement. Do you agree with what I'm saying about that there's a need for worship, need for Quran and Revelation, etc., and stuff like that? A good way that I like to bring the Quran in a simple way, someone that's never read the Quran, and most non-Muslims will never read the Quran because it's in Arabic, but even in English, if they've not read it, I like to give the analogy of the instruction manual. That's a very powerful one. Do you know that one, Yahya?
Yeah.
Instruction manual.
Instruction, like
when you buy a gadget.
Like a phone. For
Yeah,
example, you have a manual to know how to work it. So it's like our lives. Shouldn't we have a manual? Because some people might say, well, yeah, fine, I believe in a God, but I don't believe in revelation.
Sure.
And it was, yeah, but then how do you know?
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
The manual. Yeah.
Exactly. Every time you buy a gadget, mobile phone, camera, computer system, whatever you buy, you get an instruction manual. The Quran is an instruction manual for human beings. That way, the non-Muslim, you know these sticky examples that I keep giving, these sticky sound bites. If there was no evil, you wouldn't know what good is. Quran is instruction manual. You know these things, they're very short and sweet, right? But they're sticky. What we call sticky, it means it's a sound bite. It sticks in the brain. Because people are living busy lives, yeah? They're in a world where it's very capitalistic and they're very busy, isn't it? You know how life is. There's short time to digest information, have long. Sometimes if you give a little short drop of the medicine, the sound bite, it sticks in the brain further, right? It goes further. I'll give you a little example maybe with the Jannah later, right? So basically what you want to explain is, why is there a need for revelation? It tells us what He wants from us. You know, Allah gives us clothing, food, shelter, everything, our physical needs. Would He not give our spiritual needs? You know, our purpose in life through the Quran, the revelation? Of course He would. Otherwise, we're going to be running around everywhere, going astray, right? So He announces His presence to mankind, provides a manual, as I mentioned, for how we should live our lives, explains His nature, explains who He is this Creator, right? So, how do we know the Quran is from God? Well, the core message throughout the Quran, as Brother Hassan clarified, is the Tawheed, or the worship, right? So to know Allah, to love Allah, to obey Allah, to single Him out for all acts of worship. It's not just rituals like the prayer and fasting. That's not just worship. Worship can be anything, any action that is pleasing to the Creator. Providing for your family, for example, that's worship, right? So make sure you explain this. That it's very broad, it's very wide, yeah? And there's many reasons why Allah deserves our worship. You can list them. You know, there's so many reasons, right? For example, all of His names and attributes are maximally perfect. So He's of maximum perfection. He should be submitted to, therefore, because we're imperfect, we're needy and weak. We need Him, so therefore He should be worshipped, right? All His favours and provisions, you know, Surah Rahman, which of the favours can you deny? He's given us so many blessings, guys. You cannot count them. Just your eyesight alone. You know, there's one day he talks about the eyes, and would you give me your eyes for £2 million? Would you sell me your eyes for £2 million? And nobody says yes. No one's going to say yes, are they? Yeah, or for £20 million, give me your eyes. Yeah, I'll take them out of your head. And everyone says no. And then, you know, would you not thank the one that gave you them free? Yeah, which is the Creator, the one who created you. Yeah. So this is the favours and provisions of Allah. If we love ourselves, we must love Allah because He's the one that made us. There's many reasons why He deserves our worship. And some of the acts of
we don't worship Allah because Allah doesn't need my worship. Whether you worship Him or disobey Him, He's only the greatest.
True.
He said you need to pray for example, 5 times a day.
Yes.
Even if I pray 15 times a day,
yes,
it's not even enough for just creating one eye.
No way, no idea.
So He gave it for free, everything for free. Why should I prostrate myself?
100%, mashallah, excellent. So, acts of worship, right, these come in different forms. So we've got things like dhikr, we've got things like tadabbur, you know, contemplating on the Quran, the good deeds, the supplication, the dua. Explain these things to people, you know, in your dawah. Explain something, give them a story, make it like interesting and stuff like that. I one day making dua, this happened, then they relate to you. They're like, wow, this guy did the supplication and it worked for him. He's now got X, Y, Z, and something's gone good in his life. So make it like that they get drawn in. Don't just make it like robotic theology. We raise our hands, we ask the Creator. If you make it very black and white, they can't relate to it. But if they see the living Islam, the living example, the living person, someone benefiting from this guidance, then they're drawn into it, right? So obviously the 5 pillars, you do dhikr, you know, the hearts become softened, they remember the God, remember Allah, all this good worship, mention it. And mention some of the, you know, the fruits of the worship. Things like the Jannah, obviously we're trying to get to a Jannah, we're trying to be away from a hellfire. It gives you contentment, prevents depression, humility, hope. These are all the good results of the worship, right? And you can explain all this, how it enriches one's life. You get sakina, you get peace, you've got the guidance. Yeah, it gives you many blessings. You have this hope, you know, all the time you're hoping to get to the Jannah. You have a hopeful state. Like atheists, if they are true to their worldview, not all of them, but the majority of them, they believe in philosophical naturalism, that everything's within the physical realm. So ultimately, where's their ultimate hope? You know, if they're dying on the deathbed and they've got no Jannah to come, where's their ultimate hope? They've only got this. There's no ultimate hope for these people. for the militant type of atheist and stuff like that, right? And some of them, just to mention something about atheists, it's like, and the arrogance and stuff like that. Once a brother or somebody, a da'i, he basically kind of asked the atheist, he said, if I could give you conclusive proof that God exists, something that works for you, conclusive evidence, would you believe? What do you think he said? He said no. And you know what his answer was? He said, and remember, they're saying we'll give you conclusive proof that God exists, something that works for you, the proof that will work for you. And the atheist said, the reason why I would say no is because I don't want to believe that there's something better than me out there. Arrogance, pure and simple. Not all the atheists are of such an extreme, right? But I'm just saying, with some people it's like arrogance and stuff is very deeply embedded, right? So, let's move on to Jannah and Jahannam, so the Akhirah. I'll tell you a funny story. This funny story happened in a town that I used to live in before I lived in London. There was an uncle's in his 60s or 70s, an elderly man, and he was coming to a bus stop, and he used to always wait at the bus stop, and there was a young Polish guy that used to wait at the bus stop as well, standing there, and they kind of saw each other, met the faces, hello, good morning. He's going to work, whatever, uncle's going to another place, mosque or whatever, right? So they used to meet each other. And then what happened was, the uncle one day just told the Polish guy directly, he said, if you don't accept Islam, you're going to the hellfire forever. Now we're laughing, right? We're thinking, uncle's very direct, right? And X, Y, Z. But the man,
Allah knows best.
Allah guided him. This is the ending of the story. The Polish man became a Muslim. He got so shocked out with what uncle was saying that he went home, he had a Quran at home which he was studying, and the uncle was the catalyst. The uncle's speech and action pushed him over the edge, and he became a Muslim. He accepted Islam. So the point of my story is, don't shy away from anything that talks about Jannah and Jahannam, so heaven and hell. They do exist in Islam, and we're not shy of these facts. We're not like, the punishments are really bad. No, they're, as Allah described them, the skins will be burned and replaced with new skins, and then that will be burned again, and there'll be an endless cycle of punishment for those that reject God. That's the reality of Islam. We don't say it's cruel or anything like that, because it's the punishment is in due course for what the crimes were in rejecting God. Yeah, and likewise for Jannah, what I like to do like a little role play. I'll do the role play with you if you don't mind. What's your name? Zain. So I'm going to do like a little game with you, Zain. It's very easy, don't worry, it's nothing difficult, right? So Zain, just pretend let's pretend you're a non-Muslim in this role play, and I'm a Muslim trying to give you dawah. So I ask you a question as a non-Muslim. What's your favourite dessert, Zain?
Cake.
Cake, right? You could have said something more interesting like, cheesecake or something like that, but I said cake, right? Cake, okay, so what sort of cake? Chocolate?
Chocolate cake.
Okay, chocolate cake, put a bit of cream on it, right? That lovely little thing to eat dessert, right? So I buy you one of these cakes and you take a spoon and you put it in your mouth and you eat it, right? Say your name is George, right? And you say to me, the Muslim, that's the best chocolate cake I had in my life. So I say to you, you know what? Next week I'll buy you another of this chocolate cake and you can try it out, right? So you go home, I go home, you come out. Next week you come out, you take a spoon, second time you come out, you put the spoon in your mouth and you say to me, this chocolate cake tastes 1,000,000 times better than last week's. Your third week, same thing, fourth week, same thing. These are the pleasures of paradise. You get do you see what I did there? I did like a little role play. So with the non-Muslim, I made it a bit more interactive, yeah? I made it a bit more memorable, a bit more sticky in their mind to explain what Jannah is. Then you can bring the details, because you've already played the game with them. I did this when I went to Cyprus. I went to Cyprus and did a Jesus exhibition, and the tourists came in the mosque and I played this little game with them, and they found it interesting, if that makes sense, because they're tourists, they're on holiday, they want to have a fun time, they want to check out a mosque, they don't want some theological kind of heavy lecture about Islam. They want something sticky and memorable that will draw them towards the true message of Islam. So the Jannah role play, then I brought the details. In this Jannah you never die, you live forever, yeah? There's no sickness. There's no stress, there's no worries, there's no studying, there's no work, there's no toiling, yeah? There's no lonely actions. So in this life, as George, our example, he eats the chocolate cake. After 2 or 3 hours sometime, he needs to use the bathroom. He needs to get rid of the waste of the food, right? It's a natural process, but it's a reality, yeah? In the Jannah, there's none of that. Anything you wish for, you get it. So bring this whole concept of Jannah in a fun way, memorable way, in a sticky way, and the people will appreciate it. There'll be non-Muslims will be like, that's where you guys are going. You can tell them. So another thing that a person says is like, they say it to some atheists or some people or anyone. You can say it to anyone. Look, you've got 2 options when you die. There's 2 possibilities. When you die, option number 1 is, which one do you prefer? Blackness, nothingness, right? Worm buffet. You're just a piece of flesh rotting away. That's option number 1. Yeah? Option number 2 is the Jannah that I described. You know, these pleasures go on forever, you live forever, you never die, anything you wish for, you get it. Which one would you prefer when you die? Blackness and nothing, worm buffet, or the paradise, the Islamic concept of it? And only the foolish person would say, I want the blackness and nothingness. Because the other one is a perfect utopia, it's perfection. You'd have no problems there. There's no jealousy, there's no rancor, there's no hatred, there's no enmity, it's a utopia. So only the fool would say, I want the worm buffet. You know, the atheists try to say, oh, we're going to go into nothing. We're going to turn nothing, you know what I mean? Become nothing. So anyway, as you've got the idea, bring Jannah, bring Jahannam, bring these kind of things as much as you can, build it up, you know, bring your knowledge, bring your experiences, bring stories, bring descriptions, bring Quran, bring Sunnah. It's all there. Whatever you can bring it along. And this is what the messengers all did. They were warners. They gave a good news and a warning. They gave the good news of Jannah for those that become Muslim and believe, and they gave a warning about the hellfire and to be away from it, and this severe warning that this is going to be the punishment for those that arrogantly reject. Yeah. So I don't know what the next slide is. So I remember so the uncle triggered the finger of that man, the Polish man, when he told him straight, if you don't become a Muslim, you're going to go to the hellfire. Uncle was very black and white, very precise in his wording, but it worked for the Polish man. Polish man became Abdul Rahman, he became a Muslim, right? From the one speech at a bus stop, right? So don't be shy away from these things, bring it in there. And the last bit of the go-wrap is prophethood. So prophethood is all about truthfulness of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What I like to bring, brothers and sisters, for prophethood is, I like to say that there was a whole chain of messengers. Adam, Moses, Noah, Jacob, Jesus, David, Solomon, this whole chain of messengers, all of them ending with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they all call to one thing, worshipping one God alone. This is very good, because it clarifies where does Judaism come into it, where does Christianity come into it, what was the older religions, what about Hinduism? It pushes it all aside. It makes it clear that there's only been one religion since Adam, since day dot, right? So the truthfulness of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is what we're going to look at now. That we're going to have 3 options, right? So what you do, you can start talking about the prophets and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and explain why he could only be truthful. Could he be a liar? Could he be deluded, right? Or was he speaking the truth? Then you explain his teachings, beautiful teachings that he had, looking after the environment, your parents, the elderly, the orphans, the needy, the oppressed, being a just person, being an honest person, good character. All the things that he taught were miraculous, right? They were perfect, right? So this is the thing you want to bring about his teachings, and then you get that agreement at the end. So look at the thing, to analyse the thing about, could he have been a liar? Could he have been deluded? What do we mean by deluded? What we mean is a deluded person is someone that speaks falsehood, but they think it to be true. So they're speaking falsehood, it's actual garbage, they're speaking falsehood, but they think it's true. That's a deluded person, right? Could be crazy, could be illusionary, like have magic on him or something, or just deluded. He's not speaking coherently, right? Liar, obviously you know what a liar is, someone that just actively is saying falsehood, he knows he's saying falsehood, right? So there's the options. So what was the famous nickname of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the title that he was given? Yes. Excellent, everyone got it right, yeah? As-Sadiq al-Amin, the trustworthy one. So remember now, look, who are we talking about? We're talking about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the most documented man in history. That's who he is, right? Before the internet existed. You know, we talk about the marvels of the internet, how it captures data and information and data storage. The hadith and the whole corpus of our science of hadith is before the internet existed, right? And he's the most documented man in history. There's no indication ever in any hadith anywhere that he spoke a lie. He's a truthful person to the absolute sense. He never even intended to lie. Yeah, he's that honest. Yeah, that's such a good person he was, right? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So so there's no indication in the hadith, the corpus of text that we've got around this person, the most documented man in history, that he ever spoke a lie, right? Could he have been deluded? What do you think? That he spoke nonsense thinking it's true, or he spoke falsehood, thinking it to be true. What's one of the evidences we've got today that counters that he could have been deluded? Exactly, brother. Excellent. We're answering a lot of questions, right? So the Quran, yeah? Look at the Quran. If he spoke falsehood, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wouldn't the Quran have contradictions in it, like the Bible? It'd have this verse would contradict that one, this wouldn't make sense, that would be wrong, this wouldn't fit here, that wouldn't fit there. We have a perfect book, and the Quran only brings anything, it only brings like social benefits and goodness. Like the most unified people on the planet Earth that don't drink alcohol are the Muslims. Yeah, and they've got the protection from the evils and ills of alcohol and social ills like that, etc. Right? So that's a big evidence, the proof, the book, the Quran. There's other evidences in history as well, like the incident where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, a sad time, his son Ibrahim passed away, the sun and the moon eclipsed, right? And the people came out, the Arabs, they said to him, this is because you are a prophet, this is a sign that your son has passed away. But then revelation came to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he countered what they said. He said, no, the sun and the moon do not eclipse the birth and the death of anyone. So if he was deluded, a madman, a crazy person would be like, because think now what an eclipse is, guys. Eclipse is not like what it is now. An eclipse today, we know on the smartphone, on the internet, we know it's coming, what it's going to look like, a blood moon, and this. We know beforehand what it's going to be like, right? An eclipse at those days, this is the pre-science era, before the scientific method. In those days, what was happening in the eclipse? You know, people were coming out of their houses, they're seeing a phenomenon that they never imagined or never seen in their lives. In their whole lives, they haven't got any documentation that it's going to happen. It happens randomly, everything goes dark. They're mind blown. They're like, what's happening to nature of the world? So it's a big event, massive event. So if he was deluded, he could have run with that sign and been on falsehood and said, I am a prophet, this is a sign that I'm a prophet. But he didn't do that, right? So he could not have been deluded. So the only option you're left with about Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is that he was a truthful person, yeah? A truthful person. And then you can bring all his teachings. You know how he had mercy and compassion, justice, contentment and spirituality, love, community and peace, humanitarianism, character and manners, environment and animals, all these type of things that you can talk about for a long time, what he did, and the stories of his heroism, his justice, his kindness, the incidents, his bravery, the X, Y, Z. There's so much you can bring, and you should bring this in your dawah, how he was a good character, a good person, how we follow him, and we try to emulate him and stuff like that. So that's the end of prophethood, and that's pretty much the end of the bulk of the course. I've tried to wind up at a good time. I don't want to keep you guys held on too long, because obviously we've got to pray as well, Dhuhr, and we want to head out to the town. So now you get this phase of the Shahada. So the Shahada is obviously this point where someone now, they've listened to all your dawah, you've maybe gone through the go-rap with them, they've listened to the message, they've contemplated, they're believing what you're saying, and they want to become a Muslim. So they will take the Shahada, the testimony of faith, right? So now, what a good thing to do would be summarize everything that you've gone through with them. Tell them, does it all make sense what I've said? God is there, He exists, nothing comes from nothing, for example. God can only be one, there was prophets, there's a heaven and hell. Explain and summarize everything to that person. Because unfortunately, many people, they take the Shahada, but they don't remain upon Islam. That's a problem we've noticed, We call it trophy Shahadas. We made this mistake in IERA. I'm not going to say that we are some sort of dawah experts and the leaders of dawah. No, we're common Muslims and we make mistakes as well. And we, over the years, we acknowledge that these mistakes were coming up. They were happening. We were getting shahadas like in different towns and cities that people were saying, Shahada here, Shahada there, I'll become Muslim. And then you call up the person a week later, okay, you took Shahada in Devon city centre, whatever, town centre. And they're like, no, I don't even remember being Muslim. What's Muslim about? I don't know, who are you? You know what I mean? They just deny it all, right? So these are the confetti shahadas. They're very dangerous because it looks like, it's good for the ummah and everything's growing and everything's going good. But you realise, no, this is all false, So always be clear that they get a formal invitation to Islam. Make things clear to them. Don't over-formalise it, but tell them, look, you're going from your old life to the life of Islam now, yeah? You're making Allah the most important thing in your life, and Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and along this path you're going to need support, and that's the key thing I've noticed from my experience with reverts. Those are the reverts that you get behind in the beginning. You start supporting them, they usually come through stronger. The ones that you leave astray or lead on their own, they usually get weak. They get weak and they get drawn in the dunya, they get mixed up and they go back to leaving Islam, sort of thing, very rapidly. And there's a lot of Muslims, reverts, leave Islam, yeah? So be very careful about that. In fact, this slide here shows 40 to 50% of converts are not remaining upon Islam and not becoming Muslims or practicing Muslims. An integral part of dawah means establishing a strong support system, for those that accept Islam. So the statistics are really bad. I reckon it's higher than that. It's hard to quantify that figure, but probably about 70% or maybe even more, could be 90%. I don't know. Allah knows the true number, but at the end of the day, they're not sticking with Islam. You know, we have got this perception, we keep saying Islam, the world's fastest growing religion, right? Non-Muslims say it, Muslims say it. And it's true, okay, we can agree with it. Islam, the world's fastest growing religion. But remember, there's a trailing edge, a back end, a tail end. And that's with people leaving Islam. And they're leaving for the most flimsy reasons. Like Muslims are leaving Islam for the reason of the science narrative. That science gives all the answers. Science is the new God. Yeah, with science you can answer everything, even the God question. And do you need God? Yeah, because they overhype science. You know, science in the last few years has been overhyped to such a high level, right? But it has got limitations. Science has got limitations. It's a beautiful subject. The Muslims invented the scientific method. We embrace it. We love it. We use it. We get technical jobs with it. We do whatever. But we don't say it's the primary source of knowledge. You know, science is not the primary source of knowledge. You'll find that testimony, people telling you things, is a more higher source of knowledge. So science, just very quickly, so because I'm interested in this subject of, you know, because people don't have this knowledge, sometimes they don't see clearly, they get indoctrinated over the years of scientific priming. You know, like the picture of the monkey and the turning into the man, the Darwinism model. This is pushed out in the schools and universities and through the media. They've even made a computer game now. This computer game, I saw it on a YouTube ad, and it's got the evolutionary model and stuff on it, yeah? But some limitations of science, very quickly, brothers, I've gone off at a slight angle, but I'll end here. Limitations of science is, it can tell you the how, but not the why. So it's limited straight away in its scope. So it can tell you how the phone is made. Why? Because Murtala's going to own this iPhone one day, be in Devon doing a lecture, using it, whatever. It can't tell you the why. Never. But in the Quran, Allah tells you the how and the why. There's a verse in the Quran about the birds, they flap their wings. So there's the thing about the lift, the science is in there, the howness is there, how they fly. By the permission of Allah, they're held in the sky, the why is there, right? It cannot tell you about morals. Someone takes a knife, big knife, in the Devon High Street, they stab you in the chest, they try to take your money, try to mug you, they harm you, they injure your body. Morally, that's an evil thing, isn't it? They stabbed you. But someone takes a knife, and they cut you open, and they take out the heart and do a heart transplant. Morally, it's a good thing. After the permission of Allah, they're trying to save someone's life. It's amoral, it can't tell you about morals. So it's limited again. Do you see how science is limited? It's limited in its scope of ability, it's got limitations. Yeah, it cannot lead to absolute truths. One theory now will be overridden in a few 100 years or decades or whatever. They get new theories that override the old ones. So it can't lead to absolute truths. You can't say with absolute certainty, this is a bottle, for example. Scientifically, this is a bottle. Yes, it's plastic, but they might discover in I don't know, 5,000 years from now, they might discover that plastic was actually some other substance, or some other new theory comes out. It's not about atoms, neutrons, electrons, protons. It's about other subatomic things that make up things, and they realise we shouldn't have called it plastic bottle. We should have called it oil-based something or whatever, something different, some other chemistry. It keeps renewing, so it doesn't lead to absolute truths. So it's limited. But in Islam, we get absolute truths. Allah exists, absolute truth, and so Quran is there, absolute truth, and so on. And when you list them all with science, all the limitations, you then put it in its place. But unfortunately, nowadays, what they've done with science is they've overhyped it. They've made out that it's the new utopia. You know, with science, you're going to go places, and you do. There's rocket, space travel. There's Elon Musk, and all this stuff is going on, and heart transplants. And the things are amazing, but you have to keep it in the right context because they're overhyping it. That's what they're doing. A lot of the scientists and stuff like that. So that's pretty much the end of the course. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. I'll end there. And if you have any questions, we'll take them now. Any questions about any of the dawah, the course, the content. And that's it really. If you can, feel free to ask questions or get ready to maybe pray and then head out to Falmouth or wherever we want to go with the books. Whoever wants to join us, we're going to do a practical session of some dawah while inshallah the weather's good and we've got people out there inshallah. So should we end? Inshallah, yeah?
You can have a conversation, brother. I think you usually bring some food.
Yes.
Brother bought some food so we can have some more
Okay.